I'm Rolf Rosenkrantz, and I'm here in Washington, D.C. together with Francis Charles, the Advocacy Manager of World Vision. You've been traveling to D.C. From the Democratic Republic of Congo. Thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
You were just in New York meeting with United Nations officials. What were you trying to achieve?
So last year we saw the UN Security Council introduce 2098, a new resolution which dramatically changed the nature of the peacekeeping mission we have in the Democratic Republic of Congo. What we're doing and what we are trying to do, and the reason for my visit to come from DRC to DC and New York, is really to look at how did the mandate affect the communities that we work with? How much has it changed the peacekeeping mission? What gaps in implementation did we see last year? And really understand the impact and what that means for the mandate renewal coming up. And the main message that we want to put forward, and we have been saying to states in New York, and that we've been saying to State Department in DC, is that the political and military initiatives that were introduced in 2098, really a lot of their impact has yet to be felt by communities. And there was a lot of attention around M23, the rebel group that was threatening Goma last year, who have now been militarily defeated. But for a lot of communities in eastern Congo, in North and South Kivu, the situation remains the same. There is large-scale humanitarian problems and a plethora of armed groups that are still threatening. So what we wanted to do was address this with the UN, address it with other governments who have a part to play, and say, do you know what? 2098 brought in some really critical new parts to the mission. We saw the introduction of a force intervention brigade, which is part of the UN that now has an offensive mandate. We saw the introduction of drones, so surveillance drones. And we've seen the mission change their entire protection policy. What the mission currently has is what's called a Chapter 7 mandate, which means they have peacekeepers their whole job is to be protection of civilians. But something that we have found, and the mission has been criticised quite a lot for in the last few years, is they haven't really been able to respond to threats. They're very static. And what the mission tried to do by introducing a force intervention brigade and change their protection policy is to have a force that can get to the threat, that is more flexible, that is more mobile. So instead of kind of having bases, that they are able to move quickly and respond to situations which we have a lot of in especially North Kivu, where the force intervention brigade is currently deployed. But the really critical part of this, and what we feel, is that protection of civilians can't just be a military approach.
Sure.
And what we really want to see is that as the mission thinks about its new mandate and the renewal for this year, that protection of civilians becomes something that is mission-wide. So it's not just a military approach. It's not just about tackling armed groups. How you need to have your civilian staff in the field, working with communities, understanding the threats, and being able to respond to them quickly. So we are pushing for, in the mandate, that protection of civilians is not understood as a military approach, that actually it's mission-wide, and that a reconfiguration of the mission to the east, which is something that we can talk about in a minute, will mean that they have a better ability to do that, but we need to see it implemented. That's what we want. Something that's very significant for us, and we think that's going to be a game changer, is the fact that the mission has decided to move a lot of its key staff to the east. So about 800 members of MONUSCO will be moving across to North and South Kivu, which is great, because having your technical staff and your expertise based in the areas where it's really needed is brilliant. But we need to make sure that doesn't mean the political pressure in Kinshasa gets left. By moving a lot of your very good staff to the east, you need to make sure that you have a similar, well thought through presence in Kinshasa that can network with the government ministries, because realistically it's the Congolese government that's going to be able to stabilize their country, but they need support. But MONUSCO needs to make sure that the way that they deliver their support is really well thought through.